Across the United States, few things define America like the machines, roads, and people that built it. Steel, power, and stories that stretch from coast to coast. This is Top Ivana, USA. America's best. Counted down. Told right. On July 7th, 1919. Washington, D.C. 0 milestone, south lawn of the White House. At 11:15 in the morning, 81 U.S. Army vehicles rolled out onto the road and into history. They were heading for San Francisco, California, 3,251 miles away, on roads that barely existed. The Secretary of War watched them go. Nobody knew if they would make it. Among the officers riding with the convoy was a 28-year-old lieutenant colonel named Dwight D. Eisenhower. He had requested the assignment himself, bored with peacetime posting, looking for something that would matter. He had no idea that what he was about to experience on those broken roads, through those dust storms and desert sands, would one day change America forever. The convoy would travel 62 days. It would suffer 230 road incidents, accidents, and breakdowns. It would break and repair 88 wooden bridges, 14 of them in a single state. 9 vehicles would never reach San Francisco. 21 men would be injured along the route. And one young lieutenant colonel would take notes that, 37 years later, would result in the most ambitious public works project in American history. If you want to hear how this convoy changed America, here's what I ask. See that subscribe button? It's our exchange. Your way of saying this reached you. Hit subscribe if this resonated. Drop a like if it moved you. Chat and tell us in the comments. Did you know this story? It helps us share more like this. Back to the convoy. But to understand how this happened, we have to go back. The year was 1919. World War I had just ended, and the U.S. Army was sitting with a problem. During the war, motor trucks had proven themselves essential. They had moved men, ammunition, and supplies across the battlefields of Europe with an efficiency that horse-drawn transport could never match. But the war was over, and now the Army needed to know, could those same trucks move an army across America? So America in 1919 did not have a national highway system. It had a patchwork of local roads, some paved, most not, built county by county, without coordination, without standards, and without any thought for military movement. The Lincoln Highway, the first transcontinental road in American history, had been designated just 6 years earlier. Much of it was still dirt. The War Department's Motor Transport Corps was given the mission. They would assemble a convoy of 81 vehicles, trucks, motorcycles, ambulances, mobile kitchens, engineering shops, fuel tankers, and the Army's heaviest Mack trucks, and drive them coast to coast. The convoy would follow the Lincoln Highway from Washington to San Francisco. It would test both the machines and the roads. The 81 vehicles represented 13 different manufacturers: Mack, Dodge, Cadillac, Garford, Packard, White, and more. 9 Indian and Harley-Davidson motorcycles served as scouts and messengers, riding ahead each morning to mark the route with blue paper triangles tacked to trees and fence posts. There was no GPS. There were no highway signs on most of the route. The triangles were how the convoy found its way. On July 7th, 1919, the convoy departed from the 0 milestone near the White House at 11:15 a.m. The first leg, 46 miles to Frederick, Maryland, took 7 hours and 15 minutes. Eisenhower noted in his journal that the roads in Maryland were excellent. He also noted that a kitchen trailer broke a coupling at 2:50 p.m. and a fan belt broke on a white observation car. It was just the beginning. By the time the convoy reached Illinois, The roads had changed. Eisenhower wrote in his official report, "In Illinois, the convoy started on dirt roads, and practically no more pavement was encountered until reaching California. Over half the entire journey, more than 1,600 miles, would be traveled on dirt roads, wheel paths, desert sand, and mountain trails. The convoy passed through 350 towns across 11 states. Everywhere it went, Americans came out to watch. The towns organized receptions, barbecues, and band concerts. An estimated 3,250,000 Americans witnessed the convoy along its route, nearly a third of the entire population of the United States at the time. But the celebrations could not hide what the roads were doing to the convoy. From Iowa westward, the problems multiplied. Eisenhower described the roads as gumbo mud, roads that turned into traps after rain, where trucks sank to their axles and had to be pulled free one by one. On August 2, 1919, in Nebraska, 25 trucks slid into a ditch during a single day of driving. The bridges were the worst of it. The convoy broke and repaired 88 wooden bridges across the country. In Wyoming alone, 14 bridges collapsed under the weight of the trucks. The 5.5-ton Mack truck served as the official bridge tester. The engineers sent it across first. If it didn't make it, they rebuilt the bridge. On one brutal day in Wyoming, 16 bridges collapsed. Every one of them had to be repaired before the convoy could continue. The vehicles were a constant source of problems. Most had been sent without proper inspection. Carburetors clogged with sand. Fan belts snapped. Transmissions failed. And engines overheated in the desert heat. On several days, the convoy's artillery tractor was simultaneously towing 12 other trucks, all mired in mud or broken down on the same stretch of road. In Nebraska, on August 3rd, the convoy drove just 34 miles in more than 9 hours, barely 3.5 miles per hour. Desert delays had created a shortage of fuel and water. Water was rationed to 1 cup per man for supper. Supper itself was cold beans and hard bread. A team of civilians eventually arrived by horse and provided the needed water, and the convoy averaged 5.67 miles per hour over the entire journey. A modern driver making the same trip on Interstate 80 would cover it in roughly 40 hours. The convoy needed 573 hours of actual travel time, spread across 62 days. The math is simple and brutal. The roads of America in 1919 were not roads in any meaningful military sense. They were obstacles. The convoy arrived in San Francisco on September 6, 1919, 6 days behind schedule. 9 vehicles had been retired from service. 21 men had been injured. And the Army had set a new world record for long-distance heavy motor transport. But the record that mattered was the one Eisenhower had documented, what American roads had done to a military convoy in 62 days. On November 3, 1919, Eisenhower submitted his official report to the Chief of the Motor Transport Corps. His conclusion was clear. America needed better roads. He filed the report and moved on. He did not know how long it would take. Then came World War II. Eisenhower, by now a general, commanded Allied forces in Europe. He saw the German Autobahn, Hitler's national highway system, built in the 1930s. Wide, paved, consistent, designed for high-speed movement of heavy vehicles across long distances. He watched American and British forces use those German highways to advance into Germany after the Normandy invasion. He took note. He wrote later, "The old convoy had started me thinking about good 2-lane highways. But Germany had made me see the wisdom of broader ribbons across the land." 2 experiences, the struggling convoy of 1919 and the efficient Autobahn of 1944, had together built the argument he would carry for the rest of his career. In 1953, Eisenhower became the 34th President of the United States. On June 29, 1956, he signed the Federal Aid Highway Act into law. 41,000 miles of interstate highway. $25 billion. The largest public works project in American history. And the federal government would pay 90%. Construction would begin immediately. The system was formally named the Dwight D. Eisenhower National System of Interstate and Defense Highways. The highway network that American truckers drive today, that American families cross on road trips, that moves every gallon of fuel and every load of freight from coast to coast. That system began with a young lieutenant colonel who took notes on broken roads in Iowa and wrote them up honestly in November of 1919. The lesson of the 1919 convoy is not complicated. Infrastructure is not invisible until you need it. It is invisible until it fails. The bridges the convoy broke were invisible to the Americans, who had been crossing them for decades. They became visible the moment a 5.5-ton Mack truck put weight on them. Eisenhower made America look. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us preserve the history of the machines and people that built America. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and whether you've ever driven a stretch of the old Lincoln Highway. The road that 81 Army trucks crossed in 1919 is still out there, in pieces, running alongside the interstate that replaced it. And somewhere in Abilene, Kansas, in a glass case at the Eisenhower Presidential Library, a young lieutenant colonel's field notes are still waiting to be read.